The first of my poems I'm going to share with you is called Black Men Should Wear Colour, from my debut collection, Her Lost Language. As I said in the introduction, this collection contains some of my first poems I wrote after many years of concentrating on prose. I'll perform the poem in full and then talk about what it means to me. For my brother, black men should wear colour. I mean an orange coat, sunlight dripping down the sleeves, a yellow shirt to clash with bright blue trousers, taking inspiration from the most translucent sea. Pink leather shoes, fuchsia might be best, to contrast with brown skin. Red socks should add some warmth, so long as they're the only flames to ever touch your feet. A tie could be mistaken for a noose, unless you choose a rainbow swirling on your chest. It will help to show the heart has all the colours in the world. Walk down any street with head held high. I will wave my colours back, and we'll both be safe. I was inspired to write this poem because many years earlier, I spent some time living in the West African country of Senegal. It was a complete culture shock for someone who lived almost all their life in London, and I was challenged by the cultural differences and ultimately inspired. One of the things that struck me living there was the way men and boys dressed, especially on religious holidays. I noticed there was a marked preference for bright colours, the sort I was not used to seeing men wear in the UK. I saw one young man in particular who stands out in my memory because he wore a shirt and pair of trousers made from bright turquoise cloth with dark colours in the background. I thought he looked so wonderful, I bought the same cloth myself and still wear it as a head wrap. On returning to the UK, I noticed more and more that black men and boys were wearing a lot of black clothes, and in the last few years this trend, if you can call it that, has extended to black women. I spoke to a friend's young son about why this might be, and he told me he wore black clothes because it was a way of hiding in public. He didn't want to stand out in any way, because that might make him a target for violence from other young men or unwanted attention from the police. This stayed with me for a long time, until one day I looked out of a window in South London and saw a young black man dressed entirely in black. This was not an unusual sight, but for some reason the poem came to me almost whole, something which is very rare. I decided to dedicate the poem to my brother, but it's dedicated to all black men and to any reader who can see there might be something wrong when black men and boys seek invisibility. In the poem, I wanted to think about some of the more obvious associations that come up with the word black, not only as a way of describing a skin type or racialized group, but also traditionally as a colour associated with death and mourning. There are also ways in which it's associated with poverty, dirt and grime, or seen as a non-colour, something null and void, a black hole. These are all such negative connotations, and I wanted to get away from them by writing a poem that celebrated black men and colour, but one that was also clear about the violence they have suffered and continue to suffer, as shown by the murder of George Floyd in 2020. The poem begins with bright colours in contrast to black skin, and I think this might offer the reader a sense that it's going to be quite a gentle poem. Black men should wear colour. I mean an orange coat, sunlight dripping down the sleeves. But in the fourth stanza there's a change. Red socks should add some warmth, so long as they're the only flames to ever touch your feet. The mention of flames is very loaded in the context of black history because of the brutal practice of lynching, the murder of black men and women by vigilante mobs. This barbaric practice is mentioned in the classic novel To Kill a Mockingbird, set in the 1930s, which gives a sense of how recently the practice was committed. The fifth stanza of the poem also references lynching and the violence done to black people. A tie could be mistaken for a noose. But the poem returns to something more soothing after that, a rainbow swirling on the chest, and the sense that with colour there can come safety. Ultimately, it's a poem about hope and the possibility of healing.